Hello YouTubers and YouTubies, North Coast T here. Today we're working on a 2006 Chevy Silverado. Cat eye! That don't mean anything for what we're doing anyway, but 2006 Chevy Silverado. More specifically, adding cruise control and changing out the steering wheel. Let me show you how we do that. Tools needed for this job are flat blade screwdriver in case you need to pry some of those plastics apart or pry anything that's kind of stuck, a small pick or tiny flat blade for prying your wires apart if you have to depin and repin your plug underneath your dash, 5/16 for the battery, 7mm for your small screws, 13/16 for the steering wheel, or 21mm. I'm using 1/2-inch drive just to get some torque on it with an extension, so you can really get in there, and because you're gonna have to try to hold the steering wheel still and torque on that to get it loose. Ratchet, 10mm deep well with extension, T25 Torx, and possibly some pliers if you have trouble grabbing some of those smaller wires or anything like that. That's it. Let's get to it. First step, disconnect your battery. You're going to be working with the wiring and you don't want to mess anything up, or in my case I'm taking off the steering wheel, so I don't want the airbag to go off. So you get your 5/16 and disconnect your battery. Next thing you want to do is remove your fuse panel cover. It's just so it doesn't break or get popped off, because you're going to be removing this panel here. So you just down here at the bottom, grab onto it and pull out. It's got 3 clips that hold it in, and that's where your fuse box is. Okay, in order to remove this bezel here around your dash, lower your steering wheel into the lowest position, and then put your foot on the brake and lower your gear shifter into the lowest position, and then start pulling on. Some are tighter than others, but get a good grasp and pull it off, and it'll come right out. Now, fun fact about these GMs is they all come with a name. If you want to know your vehicle's name, there's stickers up here. Mine is named Pat. So there's always some sort of sticker in there, and us GM guys like to just figure out what the vehicle's name is. You pull off your bezel and it'll give you the name and its date of birth. So there you go on that. So now you get this out of your way, and then we'll move on to the next step. Now you want to remove the 2 7mm bolts. One there and one here to get this panel off. With the 2 bottom screws removed out of this panel here, you just gotta look up in here and you see it's got alignment pins. Just pull straight towards you and it'll come off. Next, you want to remove these 4 10mm bolts, 2 on this side and 2 on this side, one there and one there. So get all those removed, and this will give you access underneath this plate to all your wiring. Alright, when you take apart the bottom part of your dash here, what you're looking for is your body control module and this 4 wire connector coming off of it. If you find that inside your dash, you're golden. You just buy another stick from the junkyard. They sell them online, wherever. if you buy one that has the cruise control, it has a 4-wire connector inside here coming down, and you just plug it in. Make sure you have a fuse. Here's your cruise control fuse. Make sure that's in, and you just plug in your new cruise control stick to there, and you're set. If you don't have this, you need to go to the junkyard and either depin it there. It takes a while to depin it, so you just take off that plug there like this, and then you depin these 4 wires, and then you have to obviously remove your plug from here. This gray switch will slide over. You keep going over and it'll get to where you can pull this whole plug and unplug it. You'll see the notches here will line up. There'll be a notch in this gray thing handle that will allow the plug to come out. So that's what you're looking for. If you have this, you're golden. If not, you're gonna have to add it. So I'll show you a little bit more about that. Here's the wiper control I got from the junkyard. It has cruise control. It almost looks new, but, and this dongle sticking off here is your 4-pin cruise control. So you get that from the junkyard, and like I said, if you have that plug, you're good. You can just plug it right in and you're good to go. If not, we'll have to install it. So now we got to take apart the column here, and there's no screws in this one, so you're just gonna pry down on the bottom and up on the top, and you gotta make sure you take your it's best if the steering wheel is all the way down, but you gotta pull your tilt handle out of there, and it just pulls straight out. Give it a little bit of a tug and it'll come out, and if it doesn't, you need some gentle persuasion on it, but it's just sitting in there. Believe it or not, I've had this one out 2 or 3 times already. And just like that. Comes out. And when it's out now, you can actually pry this down. So let's get to that. You don't need to remove your steering wheel. In this case, I got another steering wheel from the junkyard as well that's nicer than mine. So if you're going to remove your steering wheel, you got a little hole here and a little hole on the opposite side, right on this side, and you're just going to stick something in there, a little screwdriver or whatever, to release the clips for your airbag. Make sure your battery is disconnected before you do this. I'm going to go ahead and remove my steering wheel as well, because like I said, I'm going to replace it with that one. And this is kind of just clipped together. Comes apart a little easier with the steering wheel off, but you can get it off so without taking the steering wheel off. But one of the screws for this switch is behind the steering wheel, so you'd have to turn it a little bit to where you can get a Torx in there. But so let me go ahead and get this out of the way. Every time I go to make a video, my neighbor decides he's going to cut grass, but so sorry about that in the background. But as I'm pressing in this hole with the screwdriver, you can see it's releasing the airbag. So, and make sure you have your battery disconnected for at least 5 minutes. Let all your modules run out of power, because a lot of times the capacitors will hold power, and we don't want that going off. So I'm going to go to the bottom side, which is actually just the side. And you should see it when you go in there. It's so hard to do with one hand holding the camera. I decided to turn it facing up so you can see better and I can see better. But you want to go in there and you'll feel a clip that you're going to release. And of course, one of them comes off really easy, and this one makes me a liar. And just like that, it pops out. So you just got to get the right angle in there, and then that pops out. See, all you're trying to do in here is when you go in there, there's a little rod. You can see it moving in this plastic hole right here. That holds your, see, I can press it real easy now that I know where it is, you know, and the thing's off, but that little rod latches right in the back of here. So on either side. So you just have to push it in and then they'll release. And now that your airbag's out, you want to carefully disconnect these two cables here. And then this is your horn button. You got to push it in and turn it counterclockwise to get it to release. So I'm going to go ahead and do all that. I like to make sure my steering wheel is straight as possible. Here's that horn button. You just press it in and kind of rotate it counterclockwise a little bit and it'll pop out of there. So this is a 13/16 or 21 millimeter, I think, but you want to get a good extension on it and get it away from the steering wheel. I think I have a shorter extension in here somewhere, but loosen that up. I don't remove that nut completely because when you're trying to yank the steering wheel off, it'll hit you in the face. So just loosen it like 80%. So let's get that done. If you hit it a few times from behind, the steering wheel will pop off. If you look really close in here, there is an arrow embossed into the aluminum there at the top. And then you make a mark on your bolt facing that arrow. I'm pretty sure this only can go on, it can probably go on 180 off, but I mean, I think there's a way that's keyed, so it only goes on one way. But just to make sure, there's an arrow there embossed into the aluminum, and then I put a mark there, and then after popping it loose, now just remove your nut the rest of the way off. With the steering wheel out of the way, you can pry this apart. It just clips together, but man, does it stick together well. And so now you got this completely loose, and it just clips together, and then it kind of has this weird hinge in the back where it fits together with the bottom plastic. But with that out of the way, all right, now to remove this blinker switch, it's two T25s, one here and one going straight down right there. And with the steering wheel on, you have to turn it to where I think the most shallow side is here, and you can get at it through there. But it's kind of difficult. But if you don't need to remove the steering wheel, don't. It's just a big pain in the butt to remove it. But like I said, I'm switching out mine, so. And there is where there's a key mark where the spline quits. I don't know if it'll focus on that or not. That's facing the arrow, so the arrow goes on your steering wheel, goes right into there. Let's see. Yep, right in there. So let's get these T25s out, and then we can work on your wiring that plugged in there. With your two screws removed, you just lift straight up on this and it comes out. Just kind of sits down in a groove here. And Now take off these 3 plugs. Your new blinker switch will have 4. Get that removed. Take your small flat blade and you kind of pry out on these little locking tabs and then pull out at the same time. All of them have them. So let's get that done. As you're plugging them back in, they can only go, each one is a separate, different type of plug to plug into. And then here's your 4 wire plug that goes to the new plug that you installed or the plug that you just found laying in here doing nothing. So that's your cruise control. That's separate, complete wire. So there we go. Now the cruise control is hooked up. In order to start the pinning and depinning, you have to remove this center plug from this outer plug. And because you got to ultimately get these blue locks off of there, because those lock the pins in place. In order to get this center out, it slides straight out towards you with the blue facing you, but you have to flip it over, and it's going to be hard to get this on camera, but right inside here in that little hole you'll see that clip. There's one there, and there's one on the other side in the same place right there. And you take your flat blade and you stick it in this little square hole here with the tab. So hard to see in there. And then you gently press the center out while prying on that. It'll take you a little bit of time, but it can be done. So this phone is not holding up, but you want to stick your screwdriver right in there and just gently press it over while pushing the center out. And gently work a little on each side and it will come out the center. And there's a little tab right there. You press those and get that out. And I'll show you what that looks like. In order to depin and pin these, you have to remove this these blue locks. And the way to do that is stick your screwdriver in the side in the slot here and push, and then you'll see it slid over just a tiny bit and you can just slide it straight out. And it's keyed to only go one way. See, it's thicker on this side and it's just a slot on this side. And when it's in place, you can barely see it in there, but if you take your flat blade and press in there, you're just pushing against this, and you're going to push it out the other side. So you pull both those out, then you'll be able to depin and pin. I just held this one next to the one in my car so I could see which slots I was removing from so I can add it to them. And if you look close on the side, it'll tell you this top pin here is B25, B17, B9, B1. So that'll give you reference when you're pulling them out. And then B32, 24, 16, and 8. So 32 on this side, 25 on that side, so that would be B25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. So it just goes straight across. I couldn't find any good videos on this, so I'm trying to do the best I can. So and then it just slides right out the back. Now you definitely want to pay close attention to the orientation of these plugs, because they go opposite, you know, with the wider side down and the wider side up. And you can go online. I'll try to attach a diagram of which 4 wires you're going to pull out, but you'll see it. You'll have the plug. I already pulled the plug out of mine, this one here, but I got this from the junkyard. And as you just follow the 4 wires to where they go in here, and you got to mark down where they go, because when you depin it for here, you got to put it in the next one. So then if you wanted to reinstall this wire, it's going to be thick side up. You just go from the back, and just going to get it in there, and you push it in, and it's locked in. So that's the depinning and pinning process. So you do that on the 4 that you need for your cruise control, and that's that on the pinning. So once you have the 4 wires depinned, you can, I don't know, keep this for reference or whatever, because there's a tab on this side and it's flat on this side, so that's a good way to orientate. I think the hardest part of this whole job is you have to separate the center from the outer in your vehicle, because you don't want to remove this whole harness. So this is going to be attached in your car, and you have to do this whole same process and remove these blue clips, the locking clips, because these blue locking clips actually lock all these wires in place. That little tab locks them, but then this makes sure it's not going to pull out. And you got to do all that in the vehicle. So I think all in all, it took me, I was making a video, so it took me probably an hour and a half to 2 hours while making the video and stopping to record everything I was doing. So hardest part is, once you get this whole harness unplugged, is separating the 2 plugs, getting these clips out, depinning, and then sliding your wires in from the back, and then put it all back together. And just like that, you press the cruise, and it works. Job well done. Airbag light was already on, so that has nothing to do with what we did. But the cruise is holding. And it's because the cruise control on these Silverados is controlled by the BCM. It's not a separate module that is wired, to the throttle. Like some of the 4.3 actually has a wire that runs from your throttle to the engine to control your throttle. But as soon as you go to the 4.8 or the 5.3, it's by electric, so electrically controlled cruise control. So it's already built into the BCM. You just have to add the switch to get it to work. And there you have it.